They're the tiniest, most fragile patients imaginable. Babies still weeks away from being born. They won't survive without surgery, but they're still too young to make it in the outside world. Now, thanks to extraordinary new technology, doctors can perform life-saving operations on babies while they're still inside their mother's womb. I've witnessed in-utero surgery, and it quite simply takes your breath away. This is where all life begins. But because of some extraordinary modern medicine, it's also where lives are now being saved.
That's the lower lip. So that was the chin there. It's the lower lip.
Lucy Hutchins and her husband Richard are seeing their baby Charlie for the first time inside her womb.
There it is.
This is more than an ultrasound. This is the new frontier of fetal surgery, an operation performed inside the womb and Charlie's only chance of survival.
Choices were to have a termination, carry on with the pregnancy, or the third option was to have her experimental fetal surgery, which obviously when we were told that, you think experimental, the first word, doesn't sound very good.
It certainly means there's not a long history of success.
No, not at all. And that was our only choice, to try and save our baby.
At 20 weeks, Charlie was suffering a diaphragmatic hernia, a condition that stopped his tiny lungs from growing. He was facing certain death until Lucy and Richard met Professor Kypros Nikolaides, a world pioneer in fetal surgery.
In the case of Charlie, when we saw his mother and we diagnosed the problem at 20 weeks, we knew that Charlie would have died because the condition was extremely severe.
It was the worst scenario of a pregnancy you probably can have, where these babies have a very, very small chance of survival. And unfortunately, Charlie's diaphragmatic hernia was probably the worst case you can have.
To save Charlie, Professor Nikolaides had to insert and inflate a tiny balloon inside his trachea or windpipe. That meant navigating a fetoscope into the womb towards Charlie's mouth, then down into his windpipe. When the balloon inflates, it stops fluids that naturally build up from being released, forcing the lung to expand and ultimately grow. I mean, that just seems incredible.
Yes, it is incredible. It was incredible to me when we started doing these procedures. How can you even dream that you will guide this endoscope into the baby's trachea? How am I going to go from outside into the mouth, over the tongue, with a solid instrument, and then eventually around at the common opening, and then flip the telescope forward to enter the trachea and not end up in the stomach? But then, after the first procedure, you realize that the babies help you.
There it is.
Once you guide yourself near the mouth, because the baby is floating, as you enter the mouth, the baby acquires the position that you want it to.
What does it feel like?
An out-of-body experience, I suppose. That's the only way I can describe it, because you're watching your baby on the screen in front of you and you can see him and you can't believe that that's your baby inside you. It's incredible, isn't it, Richard?
I mean, you see a baby on an ultrasound, and as everyone does, but not many people get to see them in the flesh, so to speak, that while they're still in the womb.
And about to have his first piece of surgery.
His first balloon.
20 years ago, these were the breathtaking pictures taken during fetal surgery. A tiny hand extended from inside the womb. Back then, surgeons had to cut open the uterus, highly dangerous for both mother and child.
That's the face.
The advances since then have been incredible.
You have these 3 side channels.
Through this fetoscope, doctors control miniature instruments to perform keyhole surgery.
this single piece of technology has changed everything.
Yes, it does, because it gave us the access that we needed. You don't need to cut people up anymore and pick them up to have a look at them. You just look at them down the telescope.
And it's little more than a pinprick, isn't it?
Correct.
Which is amazing.
It's a procedure that, amazingly, often means mothers can be admitted as outpatients.
There's very little trauma to the woman into the uterus. She'll stay here for another half an hour, and then she can go home. To produce problems, if something goes wrong with the small baby, and the blood will rush from the big baby into the other one.
Here at King's College Hospital in London, Professor Nicolaides is at the forefront of this extraordinarily delicate 21st century surgery.
That's the umbilical cord where it goes inside the baby's belly button. There.
He's performed countless operations, which are now being copied around the world.
The whole process is very emotional for me. It's an emotion of excitement because of something new that we are doing. It's an emotion of fear, whether what you're going to do is going to result in immediate complications, and you can see them there and there. It's an emotion of uncertainty. Am I doing the right thing? Is it going to work out?
It certainly worked out for 6-year-old Ella Turner.
Yay! I'm in.
If it weren't for in-utero surgery, Ella may have been born without a left foot.
Because if that surgery wasn't available, then many other obstacles would have been coming your way.
It would have been much more complicated for Ella and a lot more difficult for her to deal with that right throughout her life.
At 19 weeks into her pregnancy, Joanna Turner's doctors discovered a potentially devastating problem. Tissue from her uterus had wrapped around baby Ella's ankle, restricting the circulation to her tiny foot.
I guess as a mother, that's a fairly confronting moment.
To go from thinking nothing's wrong and visiting your obstetrician and then just in a couple of seconds to be told that there's all these problems with your baby, and just a horrible sense of helplessness really that I felt.
Left untreated, Ella's foot could have been amputated.
And so there's the hole through the band, opening that area right up.
Her doctor, Associate Professor Chris Kimber from Monash Children's Hospital, suggested an in-utero intervention.
Without that surgery, what might have been the scenario for Ella?
Well, the level of blood supply compromise and swelling that she had before the operation, we were concerned that she might lose below the ankle on that leg, but also we're really worried about the long-term function of the foot and the ability for gait and running and those sort of activities to be normal. And that's, in the end, what made us the decision to intervene.
Big decision?
Not really, no. I just had an overwhelming urge to do what I could to help Ella.
So, at 27 weeks, more than 3 months before she was born, Ella underwent surgery. In the pictures from her operation, Dr. Kimber carefully manoeuvres his fetoscope towards Ella's tiny foot and the tissue wrapped around her ankle. Then, carefully, using pulses of electricity, he cuts it free.
I'm sure a lot of people want to know, does the baby feel the operation?
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic question because that's very significant to us. We do our procedures under general anaesthetic, and the general anaesthetic crosses the placenta and anaesthetises that baby as well.
So the mother has a sleep and the baby has a sleep.
Yeah. And it's a very stressful procedure for the mother, and so for her going off to sleep for that hour to hour and a half is often quite relieving.
Although some of her toes had also been affected, Ella came into the world with a near fully functioning foot.
If this surgery wasn't available, what would have been the outcome?
My guess, it would have amputated because it was quite deep, and she would have been without her left foot.
That's ultimately the difference this surgery has made.
A huge difference.
Ella having a foot or not.
Yeah. And to her, waking up in the morning and just getting to go and run around and not have to worry about all those extra things for her, it's just been massive for her.
In London, with little more than a month before she was due to give birth, Lucy Hutchins was back on the operating table. It was time for Professor Nicolaides to pop the balloon that had been helping baby Charlie's lungs to grow.
There.
How soon after Charlie's operation did you know that it had been successful?
Within a week, in the case of Charlie, we knew that we could potentially end up with a survivor because the lungs were responding well.
This is it.
Yes, this is the actual balloon. It's incredible, isn't it?
It's unbelievably tiny.
Yeah, it's absolutely tiny. And it's so hard to actually see. You can't believe that something as simple as that saved Charlie's life and made his lung grow.
Happy birthday to you.
Charlie has celebrated his first birthday.
Happy birthday, dear Charlie.
It was a party very few had expected he'd ever make.
Charlie would have died. We wouldn't have Charlie. And how would that affect our lives? To think we lost our baby, I think it would have been absolutely devastating for us, wouldn't it?
Yay! Goodbye!
Charlie is part of a brave new world where more and more babies will potentially face their first surgery well before birth.
Come in with the telescope there.
A world in which pioneers like Professor Nicolaides hope to change destinies even before a breath is taken.
Charlie is one now. You would deem him a success story.
He's a wonderful success story. And Charlie is a good example of somebody that would have not survived and is now is a wonderful child and it's 1 year old and it's perfectly well. And it is because of the Charlies of this world that we carry on.
Hello, I'm Nick McKenzie. Thanks for watching 60 Minutes Australia. Subscribe to our channel now for brand new stories and exclusive clips every week. And don't miss out on our extra minute segments and full episodes of 60 Minutes on 9now.com.au and the 9Now app.